Hey, what's up? Mike here. Thanks for tuning in to another video. So in this video, I want to go over 5 essential questions every product designer should ask before jumping into the design phase of every project. Okay, before you start a project, there's always an initial meeting. I call this meeting the kickoff meeting. All right, a lot of people call it the kickoff meeting. In this meeting is where you will get all your questions answered before moving on to designing any mock-ups or anything like that. Right, phase 2 of my design process I consider to be the brainstorming research phase, where I take these questions, I go research competitors, come up with some ideas, some sketches, and create some prototypes for that initial stakeholder review. All right, but a lot of people ask me, hey Mike, is there a list of questions that you ask? Is there a template that you use? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. You can do all that stuff. I don't. I mean, I've been in the industry for so long, I just know these questions off the top. But there's no right and wrong. But the thing is this, you don't want to have 1,000 questions, which you could ask 1,000 questions, but why? You don't want to sit there for an hour asking all these questions, right? So I think, hey, start with these 5. This will give you enough to at least get started. And then just know this, your number one goal, or your number one job to do when you're going into a kickoff meeting is to listen. And organically, you're gonna get a lot of questions answered right off the bat just by whoever explaining the project to you. And then number 2, communication is key, is essential to the success of any project. And that means an open line of communication, which means there's gonna be questions answered and asked throughout the length of the process. So there's gonna be hundreds and thousands of questions that's gonna be discussed throughout. But all you really need are these 5 essential questions to get started. The 5 questions are: number 1, what problem are we solving? Number 2, who's our target audience? Number 3, what are we designing on? Is this a native app or a web app? That's important. Number 4, who are the competitors? And number 5, are there any specific requirements for this initial design or initial MVP? All right, those are the 5. What problem are we solving? Who are we targeting? What medium are we designing on? Competitors. And number 5, what are the requirements? Just briefly giving my thoughts on each one. Number 1, what problem are we solving? Many times this is answered organically, but I think in some cases it's not, right? You know what you're designing, but you don't really know what problem you're solving for. I think it's best practice for designers to get into the habit of understanding what problem are we trying to solve. For example, LinkedIn recently copied Instagram and added their LinkedIn stories that is very similar to Instagram. I think Instagram copied Snapchat. They all copy one another, it doesn't really matter. The point is this, the powers to be at LinkedIn comes down to the designers and say, hey, we want to copy Instagram stories and add it to our app, right? That's one way of looking at it. Or you can look at it like, hey, why are we doing this? LinkedIn, executives probably thinking, hey, creating, this story feature is going to create more engagement, more time spent on our application, which will open up another revenue stream for our advertisers, which opens up another revenue model, add more business to our bottom line, right? So those are some ways, like create more engagement. That's what we're solving for. And so when you look at it like that, it puts you in the mindset of a problem solver, of a business owner. And I think that's how UX designers should be thinking. Okay, what problems are we solving for? That's the first one. Number 2, who's the target audience? This is the point where a lot of UX designers will create user personas. You can do that if it's helpful. I don't really spend hours doing user personas. All I really need is a definition of who the target audience is. We were working on an app once where we were targeting millennial small business owners, right? Outside of creating an actual user persona, I just wanted to know who this person was, right? 28, John, vegetarian, trendy, who are these people that we're targeting? Because you really want to get a detail or a vision of this particular user so that you can have empathy and kind of sit in their shoes and kind of understand, okay, they like these apps, they go to these stores, they do this, they use these apps in this times. That's where a lot of UX designers will say, hey, let's create user personas. You can do that. I don't spend too much time. Once you do that, you can probably do it, have a fun exercise, creating user personas, but basically getting specific into really understanding who your target audience is really going to allow you to really get in their shoes and understand how they will be using your application that you're going to be designing. Number 3, what are we designing on? Is this going to be a native app, an iOS, Android app, or is this going to be a web app? This is important because if you go web-based, obviously you're going to have 3 different versions, breakpoints. You're going to have a desktop version, tablet view, and a mobile view, right? If it's a native app, there's a lot of other things that goes along with this, but if it's a native app, you're going to be working within that construct of a native resolution, right? So your initial designs, you won't have to do all these different sizes, desktop and all that stuff. So that's obviously important. And there's a lot that goes on if you're going web-based versus if you're going native, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that's involved on the technical side of things. But for your sake, for your designing initial, mock-ups, you need to know that so that, that's what you're going to be presenting. Number 4, who are the competitors? This is my favorite one because, or not just competitors, but are there any apps that maybe not competing with us directly, but apps that we can look into that are similar features and that we can get some ideas from, right? I love this question because I love taking this list of competitors and creating logins, diving deep into each of these apps, getting a feel for, how these apps are being used, the performance, the transitions, the animations, the features, and look at the opportunities that we could add to our app versus, what's on the market today. Some apps might be great, like, hey, we need to compete with these guys, or these apps might be mediocre and we're like, you know what, there's some opportunity there that we can, add to our application and push forth and beat the competition, so to speak. And number 5, what are the requirements? All right. Now, when you think about requirements, you can get very detailed into the requirements, but you just want to think of the bigger picture, right? We call these epics. So for example, product owners can say, hey, we're going to just need a login, a dashboard, contact list, calendar feature, and things like that. This is what you can get started on in terms of your initial designs. When you really break down these stories, these epics can be broken down into smaller stories. So when you're initially designing, it's just, hey, what are some requirements? What are some things that we don't keep in mind that I can keep in mind when I go back to the drawing board and start sketching out some of these ideas for this initial rough draft and stakeholder review. So those are the 5. You can even add a 6th one as a bonus. Is there an existing design system that you need to adhere to when you start your design process? That's obviously important. If there's an existing one, you go off that. If there isn't, obviously you can go and do some research and identify, hey, for this particular audience, for this particular niche, these types of designs, these types of iconography systems, this font, this color scheme might go well for this particular audience. If there's an existing one, obviously you don't have to worry about that. But that's another one that you might want to keep in mind. Anyway, those are the questions that I think are essential. If there are any that you think are essential before getting started, please leave those in the comments below. If you like things I talk about, hit that thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so and hit that notification bell anytime I post a new video or go live on YouTube. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. If you want to learn more about what I do and how I teach, go to my site, MLUX Academy. You can learn a lot of more stuff there and ask me any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Thanks again. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.